a minute since I last saw you. I've taken a little bit of a break for a few reasons, but I'm happy to be filming right now. Just know this is my happy place, and it just is painful when I can't make videos, but I did need to focus on other things, and mainly mental health things, energy things, life stuff. But today I'm doing good, or I'm doing okay, and wanted to film, and I wanted to share the last 8 books that I read this past October. Disclaimer, some of these books I started in September, so it's not all of them were fully read in just October. They did span from like September to October, but it was just easier to say October. Okay, so wanted to clear that up. So yeah, 8 books. One of the things I did on my break is not use social media. I'm still technically on a break from that, and it's been very eye-opening to just not be scrolling, and I do find I have quite a bit of time on my hands, when you believe it. And so I read a lot, and so now I'm going to share the books that I was reading, and yeah, I don't know when I'll return back to social media apps, because I was really just scrolling a lot. I wasn't really creating content on like Instagram or TikTok, so it's just been really nice to break away from that habit a little bit and focus on some other stuff, like reading. So I'm gonna hop into it, and maybe at the end, if there's time, I'll share a little bit about where I'm at. But for now, let's hop into the books that I want to share. So the first book is technically not this book. I think in my last video I shared about the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, written by Lori Gilmore, and I can't remember if I finished that book or if I was in the middle of reading it, but I finished that like early October. So I actually lent that book to a friend of mine, so instead for the book sounds, I'm using the second novel, The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, which I do plan on reading for November, ideally. So I think it's even placed in November, like the month of November. I could be wrong, but this is the second book, and so clearly I liked the first one. The Pumpkin Spice Cafe was a 5-star for me. Yeah. Also, I have a Goodreads if you want to follow. I'll include the link in the description. But yeah, I really loved it. It was just really what I needed. I think right now I have to kind of balance fantasy with the rom-com, fun, cozy books, and these cozy book series, specifically the Lori Gilmore books, are just, they hit the spot for me, honestly. They're just like a good, easy read. Love the spice, love the coziness, love the characters. They're just so great. I explained a lot in my last video about the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, a little bit about why I loved it, but basically it's about a girl who moves to this small town. It's like a fictional town, but kind of imagine like Connecticut or Maine, even like Stars Hollow, like that kind of vibe. And she opens up a pumpkin spice cafe, or technically she inherits it from her aunt, and she meets a very dashing young man. He's like a farmer, and he's like grumpy, and she's like all kind of like, I wouldn't say she's like overly happy, but she's definitely like a little bit more outgoing, and it's very like Luke and Lorelai from Gilmore Girls. So the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I loved. Again, gave it a 5 stars. And this is the second book that I plan on reading for November, but it is using, or it's the placeholder for the fact that I lent that book to my friend to read. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this series. I did read the Christmas Tree Farm one, which is the third book, I think. Let me see if I can find it. And all the books are based on different characters in this small town, and obviously surrounded around like the stores and like a sweet treat name. So yeah, the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, then it's the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, then the Christmas Tree Farm. You can read out of order. You're just going to be introduced to other characters and not know their background as well. So I actually do recommend reading in order. It just makes it for like easier recall of older characters, but you could read them out of order if you wanted. So yeah, the Christmas Tree Farm, I read that first and I did love it, but I'm glad I'm starting from the beginning. So I'll read this coming month for November, and then I'm going to move on to the Strawberry Patch Pancake House and the Gingerbread Bakery are the other two books alongside the Christmas Tree Farm. So already the town is growing and it's full of love and romance and sweet treats. All my favorite things. So, love it. Okay, so the next book that I finished in October is Heartless Hunter. This was quite popular, or it feels like it's quite popularly known right now as like a new book series. Like I've just seen a few people talk about it and get excited for it. My book club that I'm a part of, it's not my book club, but it's like a book club I attend in person in my local community. We read this book in early October, I want to say. And yeah, so basically it's about a witch named Rune, and she is part of a society where witches have been sort of banned. They're like being hunted. So it's kind of like Victorian vibes. Like imagine a Victorian but like supernatural community. That's what this reminds me of, like high society London Victorian era, but throw in like supernatural, that kind of thing. So already love that because I love that kind of setting. Really into that. So Rune, the main character, she is basically hiding as this like well-known socialite. She is known for outing her own grandmother as a witch and getting her taken, but it turns out that she herself is actually a witch. This is all like in the first few pages, so I'm not really spoiling anything. And she is a undercover trying to rescue witches from this like new empire regime that's taken over that has banned witches and magic. So that is like the premise of the book, and she's being hunted by Gideon Sharp, who is one of the people she needs to grow close to in order to help find a witch she is trying to rescue and hunting herself, if you will. So it's a very interesting premise already, and I was excited to read it. I will say it kind of fell flat for me. I gave it a 2, and there's a few core reasons why. Now, I love a good enemies to lovers trajectory, but they're young. First off, the age. She's like 16 when the regime began and they started banning witches, and then she's now 18, I think. So she's starting off as an 18-year-old, which is fine. Like most fantasy, I feel like, have young characters. the love interest, he's like 2 years older than her, so maybe he's like 20, something like that. So they're young. I don't know what it was, but like the age felt so young to me. Like I kept imagining them as like little teenagers. I don't know why. I don't know. Like I kind of wish they were a little bit older, because the whole time I'm like, you guys are like children. I kept thinking, where are the parents? Like the whole book, I'm like, where are all the adults? Because it just felt like this whole society was being run by 18-year-olds. I know, that's just like my mind. It was like gripping onto that. I know that that's just like a very silly reason to not like the book, but I just kept imagining her as like a very little teeny bopper. And then he was really young, like a 20-year-old guy is like young. I'm like, you're a baby. I don't know. I'm just like, I must be getting older. I do feel like I wish they were in their early 20s for this type of book. But anyway, I felt they were really young. I was like, you guys are children. For going through all the stuff that they were going through or hinting at, I was like, that's a lot for like late teens. It was, yeah. But anyways, it's fantasy, so. Also, the main romantic character guy, Gideon was very confusing as a character for me. He felt like two different people in one body. I felt like he had this soft side and like enemy side, right, to kind of be her counterpart, and it was just like very confusing. It almost felt like each chapter he was like a different person, and then there were certain things he did that I was like, that's very out of character for him. So it just felt like a lot of decisions and like character traits were very off. It just felt a bit confusing, and I feel like, yeah, it was just like very, like it didn't mesh well for me. Like it was really hard for me to see his development, and I don't know, maybe there's more, because this is a series. Maybe in the second book it'll be a little bit more tied together, but I felt like it was really hard for me to connect with him. And then the third thing was their romantic moments did not really hit for me. That's so subjective. But I just felt like when they were having a romantic moment, I was like, I'm not feeling anything. Like, it doesn't feel romantic to me. It kind of felt a little forced. Again, very subjective. So, other than those subjective things, although I do feel like character development, I don't know, maybe other people disagree with me, and that's totally fair. But other than, I feel like the romantic moments and the age thing, which are pretty subjective, the writing felt just like really, like I felt like a lot of things happened very quickly, but then nothing happened at all. Like a lot of things were insinuated. I didn't feel like I feel like this book needed to be longer, actually. And I think it just felt like I wasn't really understanding the depth of things. And then like at the end, there was like a lot of like info dumping of things that happened, but we didn't experience them as a reader. So you're just like getting a lot of backstory about important plot twists, and it just felt very off. I was like kind of confused. I will say I did get the twist, one of the twists at the very beginning, but I think I might have just been really like aware of details. So I was like, oh, I know what's gonna happen, and I did end up calling it. So I want to say everything up until the very last part of the book was like, this is a 2. But then at the end, it got a little interesting. I will say it was a kind of cliffhanger, and it kind of made me intrigued. So I might read the second book and see if it works for me. I feel like if the characters still feel the same way they did in this book, I might abandon it. But I don't know, it was kind of a little all over the place for me, and I don't know, maybe I was in a weird mood. So Heartless Hunter, let me know if you've read this and if you liked it. Again, I was just like really tied up on the age, Gideon feeling really like awkward, And then the romantic moments were just not feeling very romantic to me. I just was not getting much from that. Yeah. So I did give it a 2. I do feel like it was a bit rushed, and we could have had a little bit more to the story. Yeah. That is Heartless Hunter. So the next book I read is book 2 in the Fae of Snow and Ice series. It's called Thorns of Frost. It was another book club book, and this one was great. It's like a fantasy. I would say it's very like ACOTAR-esque. I'm not saying it's like ACOTAR. I'm saying it's like many books out there. There's Fae. The vibes are very similar, if you catch my drift, but it is like a different world. Like, it's different enough where it doesn't feel exactly the same, but it feels somewhat familiar. We'll put it that way. Yes, there's Winged Fae. Basically, it's about a girl who she grew up, you know, working the land. I can't remember if she was like a slave, but she was definitely like an indentured servant. Like, she had to work for her keep with her sister, and she was born with dark hair and no wings, and all Fae in her realm have white hair and wings. And she does have magic abilities to grow things, but she doesn't have like certain magic skills that most Fae of her kind would have. So that's like the first book, and she ends up captured by like the crown prince, and goes through that whole experience where she has to go to the palace and help the prince with a mission that he has for her to help return growth to the land. But twists and turns come what may, book 2 was a ride, and I enjoyed it. I forgot what I rated it. What did I rate it? I rated it a 4. It was really, honestly, hot. It was hot. It was good. It was good in some moments. There were some other moments that I felt like were a little unbelievable. Like, there were certain plot devices or moments where I was like, why is this happening? Like, why are we... I can't speak to it too much because I would spoil it, but this is a great series, and they're quick reads if you want to jump into the series. Book 1 was a really fast read, and so was book 2. But I will say there were some things where I'm like, you guys, if you just did this one thing, this wouldn't be that hard. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't be in this situation if you guys just decided to do this one thing and not make it complicated. But I get it. We have to have a story. So, anyways, this is a great book. Second book. I can't speak to it too much if you haven't read the first book, so highly recommend, because I do plan to continue reading the rest of the series. But yeah, it's a nice little like wintry vibe fantasy series if you want something for like the winter months. The Fae of Snow and Ice series. This is book 2, Thorns of Frost. So yeah, that was a great book, and my book club intends to finish the series out this year, so I'll be reading the next 2 books the next few months. Alright. The next book is Bride. This is like a perfect book for October. So we have Bride, which honestly, I feel like this book should have been titled something else, but I feel like I would kind of give away the book a little bit. So I'll just go over what the book is about. So the book is about this vampire, and her name is Misery Lark. It's basically present day urban society, but it's like a fantasy version. So humans exist alongside vampires and werewolves. As far as I know, those are like the core species to be spoken of. Who knows if she'll dive into something more intricate. But this is different for Ali Hazelwood because her books mainly are like, you know, scientists, women in STEM, and it's like present day romance books with spice. But this is like present day urban fantasy with spice. And I have to hand it to Ali Hazelwood. I love that she's kind of like, not that she's writing new rules, there's plenty of urban fantasy out there, but she's not putting herself in a box, which I really like. So it's about Misery Lark the vampire, who has to marry a werewolf alpha. His name is Lo Morland, and they're basically enemies. Like, vampires and werewolves are enemies, but they get married. This is like the first chapter. They get married to form kind of like a political alliance. So it's all about her joining him in marriage and exploring this political rift and like sort of the mysteries that are unfolding as a result of these, like, you know, politics at play. And she's also like on a mission to find someone she loves, so there's so much like intrigue. It's not necessarily like high intensity like fantasy. Obviously it's still like in present day, but there is moments of action, so that's really fun. And I just love a slow burn. This is great. Like, I really enjoyed it. Not gonna lie to you. There is a moment, if you get to it, there's a moment where they're in an airplane. If you know, you know. I have never, when I tell you they didn't even do anything, and that was like one of the hottest scenes, that is good romance writing, where characters aren't even going at it, if you will, but you feel so much build up and intensity, and I just, high praises. This was so good. Also, the characters are very, like, you know, layered, and they feel very tangible. They feel solid, and not one-dimensional. And I love Misery. She is probably one of the few female characters, because I feel like this happens a lot. So when you read a lot of romance, you end up feeling like you like the romantic interest more, because, I don't know, you just, sometimes it's like the guy is more well written than the girl. For some reason that often happens, but she is so likable. Like, I like her. I felt like her dry humor really made me laugh like every other chapter. I loved her personality. Like, I didn't need him to be in a scene to feel interested in reading about her. Like, I felt like she really held her own as a character, and she was so interesting and like relatable to me. And she's smart and just like a strong female character that held her own, but can still exist within like a romance book, you know? So I really enjoyed it. I'm absolutely reading the second book in this series, which is called Mate, which is about a different character. Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to read that. Maybe in the next few months. I have a few other books I'm getting through. We'll see if I can pick that one up, but this was a great read, and it's kind of one of those good, not palate cleansers, but like if you want to keep with fantasy but you need it to be a little more easy to read and digest. I feel like urban fantasy is a good genre because you're not having to like remember a ton of terminology or magic systems. It's a little more simplified sometimes. I mean, sometimes. Not all urban fantasy is the same. But this is really digestible. So, absolutely loved it. Ali Hazelwood knocked out of the park. I gave it a 5 stars. Alright, our next book is Where the Library Hides, and this is book 2 in What the River Knows series by Isabel Ibanez. I loved this book. I love this series. I have the first book as well, and I read it last year. I took a while to finish this because I just didn't want to finish it. Just like, I didn't want it to end. But I loved it. I really did. I gave it like a 4.85 or 7.5. And I docked some points because I felt like one of the characters was just like really annoying, and like sometimes the main character was making decisions that I felt like I was like, girl, really? Do we feel this way? But it's all forgivable. It really was. I really enjoyed it. I felt like it has a lot of heart. It has depth. The romance is just my favorite kind, which is just like that yearning, and there's like, again, still enemies to lovers vibes, but it's just like not overdone. It's not like a tired beating over the horse that they're enemies kind of thing. It's very like subtle things and that push and pull, and it feels very human-like as well. So there is some fantasy, magical elements to the series, but it's based in early or late 1800s in Egypt. The main character, Inez, is from Argentina, and she travels to Cairo, Egypt, in the first book to find her missing parents, and stumbles upon, well, doesn't stumble, she finds her uncle, who's the last person to see them, and he helps find, he's like an archaeologist, he helps find artifacts in that time period where it was very booming. And these artifacts have magic in them, so that's like kind of the fiction fantasy element to the historicalness of it all. And his bodyguard, his like helper assistant is Whitford or Wit, and that's like the love interest. Again, it's all very like the Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. Very satisfying to have like a book version of the movie in a way, but it is a bit different, and the second book sort of expands upon their adventures. It is a duology, so this is the last book in her story of Inez, but I believe the author is writing more stories of different characters, so I'm excited. I want to absolutely pick up her next book. What I love about Isabel Ibanez is her writing. It just really places you there. The description is well done without overdoing it or being too confusing or contrite. The characters are funny, and like, yeah, there's moments where you laugh, there's moments where you're sad, there's moments where you're yearning just as much, and it's just a wonderful, whimsical adventure. And of course there's plot and mystery and intrigue, and yeah, there were some moments where I'm like, what? But overall, I really loved this book and this series. I don't know when the next book is coming out. There's no mention of another book after this, but I do think she's writing another book, so I have to look up what that might be called. Maybe she'll release it next year. Who knows? But yeah, absolutely love it. I highly, highly recommend. So the next book was an audiobook that I finished because when you're not scrolling your phone, you're doing everything else. Let me tell you. I'm reading, I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm watching YouTube. It's really kind of a return to long form content when you're not scrolling on your phone, which is actually really satisfying, and you feel, I don't know, everything feels like it's slowed down a little bit for me, which is nice. But I finished listening to Mating in Captivity. don't know if you can see it, Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel. I've been wanting to read to this book for a while. I kind of feel like listening to it was a bit tough. With self-help books, it's just harder to recall such heavy topics. But this book is about sort of exploring the paradoxical union of domesticity and desire in relationships, and like why often when, relationships of many years or different dynamics render maybe like lack in passion. I will say it's very much focused on like the intimate physical relationship between partners. So it's a little hard because that's just like the main topic. I wasn't expecting that, I think, and that's why I gave it a 3, because I kind of feel like in the middle with this book. I thought maybe it would explore a bit more about, I don't know, just like other dynamics in a relationship, but it was very much like the physical only, which is important, absolutely, and it's impacted by all other areas, but it's really like focused on that area pretty much 100%. So like, I don't know, it's kind of tough because I feel like relationships involve so many other areas of a person. So anyways, and the examples she used were very much like what I like to call, or what I feel are extreme examples. Like there was this one example, not a spoiler alert, but there's one example of a couple where the man was like having an affair from his wife for like 5 years, and like he, in order to like reignite his like relationship with his wife, he decided to not tell her about the affair. And look, everyone has a relationship, you know what I mean? Like, you can go back to people who cheat on you, or if you have your own decision making between each other as a couple, I think that's fair. I felt a little bit like we were using extreme examples. Like, I feel like I don't come across a lot of people with these stories unless they really don't share and tell or, these are the kind of examples you would watch like on a TV show, like a Dr. Phil episode. I don't know, it just felt like she was using very extreme examples that I didn't really feel like, not only did I not relate, but also I didn't feel like most people I know might relate, just because it's so extreme. But I do feel that just because I feel it's extreme doesn't mean it's not common. I do think it's common. I do think a lot of people, unfortunately, have side families and side affairs, and I'm like, I don't know if we should be keeping that from people. Like in this one example of the man, he's like, oh, in order to like save his marriage, he would just not tell his wife about this affair. And I'm like, I'm not the therapist, but I think that's really strange. I don't know. We're all different. Like, no judgment, but also I'm judging a little bit, if you know what I mean. And then there was like other couples who were like swingers, and I'm like, look, that's just like not my world. And again, I don't know many people with those type of dynamics. I feel like it's not as like intricate. But again, maybe I just like don't know what I don't know, I think these books are important. I think they do kind of like expose the taboo and like really dive into these topics that maybe some people in these situations may not have access to otherwise. So I think it's an important book. I think it's important topics. I think I was just expecting something a little less extra and intense of like examples. So I was just kind of like, okay. But yeah, it's pretty highly rated otherwise, and I do think there's some really good nuggets of information that I think apply to all of us. So I would say check it out, but maybe the book version instead of the audible version, or the audio, because I'm having a hard time even remembering what I listened to, but I do remember it being intriguing. So yeah, That's Mating in Captivity, Reconciling the Erotic and the Domestic by Esther Bright. So our next book is Gothicana, A Tale of Dark Romance by, I think it's Runix. I think that's the name. Yeah, Runix. So this was a time, let me tell you. It was one of the book club books for Halloween time, so for October, and this is quite the book. It kind of gives, like, the setting feels very like Corpse Bride, Tim Burton, Wednesday vibes, like the setting. It's very much reminds me of that, Gothic, if you will. There are so many things to talk about in this book. First off, the writing is good. There are some moments where I was like, that's a little awkward, but then I kind of got over it. Like, I don't know if it was because it was like a very Gothic academia, dark academia vibes. And then they would say like casual things, and I was like, oh, this is like very, I'm not used to this. Anyway, it's present day in a fictional area, and it's about a girl named Corvina Clem. Corvina grew up as a daughter of a practicing witch or Wiccan, in the sense of like tarot and growing herbs and things like that. That is one thing about this book, is that there isn't any magic, but you're never quite sure of the like fantasy element. There's mystery, intrigue, but there isn't you're never really sure if there's magic or some kind of like something like that at play, supernatural. So I will say that. So she gets a letter where she can attend the University of Varenmoor, but she's a little bit older. She's like 22, but she decides to go to this university because her mother is no longer with her, so she's kind of all alone in the world. And she's a little weird, she's very witchy and goth, if you will. So she gets accepted to this school where a lot of people, well, not a lot of people are like her, but the like setting is like her in the sense that it's like Gothic. I think that's one thing I was kind of confused about, is like it's presented as like this special school and kind of quirky, kind of like from Wednesday, the TV show, like the school for like unusual magical children. At first I was like, oh, that's where she's going, because she's kind of weird and like magical. But then everyone else she went to school with was kind of normal. So I was confused about why this school existed and like what was the reason. I don't know. I think it was just like a university that was very Gothic, and like it happened to find her for a reason. But you would have to read the book to know why. So she gets accepted, and of course there is a professor who's technically her age, slightly older, like late 20s. Again, she's 22, he's like 28. And he is technically not a professor, he's just replacing a teacher spot while he studies for his like PhD. But he's kind of like a teacher in terms of the power dynamics, so it's a little bit like a professor-student thing going on. His name is Vod. I was corrected. I kept reading it as Vad, but it's Vod Deverell. And he's just immediately like hooked on her, and they grow this sort of intensity with each other. Look, it makes me think about Dracula, okay? So one of the most, I guess like my favorite things about the book is that there are, before each chapter, there's like a really pretty scene, and then you have quotes from like novels from like Gothic genre. So there's even a Dracula quote in here, if I can find one. Like they have the Addams Family, black is such a happy color. I think the details in this book are really thoughtful, and I really appreciated it, and I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to see if I can find any, but I would say the love dynamic is kind of like Dracula, where he's like immediately drawn to her, and she's kind of drawn to him. She doesn't know why. This is another quote from Wuthering Heights. So I just love that detail. Very well described, setting, almost to a fault. I honestly felt like I was all over the grounds. I was all up in this school. I was everywhere. There's just a lot of settings, and it wasn't confusing. It was just like a lot of them. And she was everywhere. She was going around. She was going through the school, and figuring things out. There's like at least 3 different mysteries happening at once, so it does keep you interested, and you're like, what's related to what, who's doing what. And I will say I was surprised. I wasn't totally surprised at the end, but I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And the only downfall, and why I gave it a 4 stars instead of 5, which 4 is pretty generous still, but the spice really did it for me. This is a hot chili. This is like, out of 5 chili peppers, this is definitely like a 4.25. And the only reason it's not a 5 is because there's way more that could have been described. But it's definitely descriptive, in case you're wondering. Look, I'm not always into insta love, like, oh, he immediately likes her and they don't really know each other, which I feel like there is an element of that kind of going through. But honestly, once again, I think the dynamic was just really hitting it for me. And like, I feel like in any other setting, I would be like, this is so, like, not doing it, and I don't feel anything. But just like the zoning in on her, kind of feeling like it's a very Dracula, like, intensity, really made it work. And I was having a lot of fun reading this. But yeah, there were some plot things that I was like, what? Like, some things were not fully wrapped up at the end, which is very irritating. But she's writing more books, so maybe she's gonna explore those other plots, because it did kind of end on a little baby cliffhanger. And she's writing another romance. It's called Enigma, April 2025, so it's probably already out. But yeah, this was fun. This was a great Halloween read. I think my favorite thing about this book was the spice. So take that with what you will. If you're in the mood for that, this is a great book. Because it also has like other story stuff going on, so you're not completely, I think that's why it made it interesting, is because there was a lot of other stuff going on too. But for me, the plot stuff kind of fell flat in some areas, because some things weren't tying up. Like, there was almost too much going on, and then the spice would happen, and I'm like, woo. Something I understand. So yeah, it was a good one in that department, I will say. So it would probably, a true review is like 4 because of spice. Without the spice, probably a 3 in terms of plot. So that is Gothic. Those purple edges. Yeah, I got this version from Target, but good book. The last book is actually not a romance book. It's a thriller, and this is a different book club I'm in book that won the voting for the month of October, and very fitting for, again, Halloween. But it's The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This is from the library. I had to get the large print. So it's like very large print. This was a little slow at first, but then it started to pick up. So I actually finished this November 1st, so a little bit of a November read, but I really finished it November 1st, and started it in October. This was a good thriller. I think most people would probably enjoy this type of thriller. It's about a girl. Soon after her 25th birthday, she inherits a house in Chelsea, London, which is like a rich neighborhood. It's what she describes like a mansion. But, you know, this house was inherited because she was a baby found in the house, with basically at a murder scene. And it turns out that the house was, having more to, it turns out the family who had her had more than the eye could see. I'm trying to find the words. There's more to the story, right, of just the murder scene and like what really happened in that home. And there's missing kids, there's missing people, and they don't know why these people died. It's like a murder-suicide situation. So yeah, she now has to discover like what really happened to her parents, to her, the situation, what really happened. And you get different POVs of the people from the house in the past and then her present day, and it gets pretty interesting. I will say my favorite POV is, I don't want to give it away, but there's a POV in here that is just really, I don't know, you're like really in their head, and just it's a really well written character. All the characters are well written, but that POV specifically really kept me going. Like I really wanted to read. It was like a past POV from the family, describing what was happening in the house, and you're just like really in the mindset of that person, and there's like dry humor and like sassiness. I don't know how to describe. It's like sassiness, but yeah, just, I don't know, wittiness. It is very gripping, not like very gory or horror, definitely like thriller genre. So recommend. Like it gets creepy, but it's not like I'm going to bed at night scared. So rest assured. So yeah, finished that for my next book club meeting. There's a lot of book club books I'm reading, which I'm happy to do. Reading is one of my favorite hobbies, so I'm glad I got to read a lot, and it's just been really what I've been needing. I gave this a 4 stars, based on like how I was feeling, and also feel like the writing did get really well done, and the character development was really intricate, or not intricate, but some of the characters had good character development, I felt. So yeah, a good one. That concludes all the books I read from like late September to literally November 1st. And yeah, I'm excited about the rest of the books I'm reading this year, or hope to read. But yeah, maybe I'll spend a few minutes wrapping up on how I've been. Like I said, took a little bit of a social media break. I'm still on that. It's been really nice not to be so attached to my phone. Again, I'm still using like Spotify and YouTube and I've been watching the Great British Bake Off, which has been so fun. I feel like I'm actually able to like finish things and have time for things because I'm not just like mindlessly scrolling. I'm clearly reading a lot, which is awesome. And I've kind of dabbled in some other hobbies, like I'm starting to explore gardening, that's been really fun. I have like this little patio garden I'm working on. I find that things right now for my mental health, working with my hands and not requiring too much creativity, has been really great. It's been really hard though, really hard. But I'm going to therapy. A lot of therapy is happening, and I'm still, spending time with family, friends, and trying to enjoy the season that comes with the end of the year. But I will say it's been a very hard year, mental health wise, and I've really had to evaluate things I need to support me right now. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where I just don't have a lot of energy to pour into the things I typically pour into, and that's been very tough to kind of see how I don't have that energy I used to have, where I felt like I could handle so many things at once really well before. I now am really struggling, and I've really had to just take a step back and take care of myself, and it doesn't feel like it's always working. I feel like I'm like planting seeds but kind of waiting for something to grow, and that requires patience and time, and I'm very impatient. I just want to be creative and like constantly doing something, but my body is like, please stop and just sit down and exist and feel worthy in just existing and not having to produce something to feel worthy. I know it's harder than it sounds. So I've just been really going through it mentally. It's a roller coaster, and I am quite seriously working on some things to help me out. So I appreciate you watching this video. I felt like it was, natural to do what I've been reading since I've been doing so much of that, and I hope you enjoyed my little catch up of that. And yeah, I'll see what I can do in getting more content out, but I know that I want to do it from a place of like genuinely wanting to do it, and this was an evening where I really felt like I have the energy, and this is uplifting for me right now and not overdoing it. So we'll see how things go. I'm not like abandoning anything. I don't want to. It's just been very tough with my mental health, and depression really sucks. Let me tell you. But I'm trying. I'm really trying. And I just want you to know, if you're going through anything rough right now, trust me, I am like holding on to ASMR just as much as the next person. I've been consuming it all the time. Just know that you are not alone. We all have things we're going through, and also we all, I think, deserve that help and support. You have healthcare, try to reach out and find mental health services available to you that are available under any care you have, because you have more support than you realize that maybe you have. And if not, again, I feel like there's so many people out there creating content for free, resources that are really helpful. And yeah, so and hey, maybe try not scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, because that has been really helpful. We'll see if I go back to it. I kind of don't want to, because I don't want to get stuck again, like addicted. I've been really enjoying just like this peace, but at the same time, I won't say it's healing me. Like, I'm not suddenly better just because I'm not scrolling on TikTok. So it's a complicated time, but I'm looking forward to the future. I appreciate you all for watching. If you made it this far, thank you. You're a real one. Whether you comment or engage, or you're just a silent watcher, I appreciate you. I see you. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you